Spirits of St. Petersburg returned to Tampa Theater 10/31/21. The day started off beautifully because the Tampa Bay Times had a whole section of articles, including one about us, talking about local haunts, and that includes the ghosts at Tampa Theater. There was a young woman who was killed on the location before the theater was built who continues to haunt the location, and then a long-time projectionist, Fink Foster, who had a heart attack and died, continues to haunt the theater as well. So one of our members suggested that we get tickets to see the 1922 black and white silent film Nosferatu as played in the theater with the live music score. As a humanities professor, I teach about this movie every semester because it's a landmark production. So we did manage to gather up 3 Spirits members and my mother, and we got some tickets and off we went to Tampa Theater. The place was beautifully decorated to help get us into the mood, particularly this gentleman, piano player, who has my level of skill. The theater itself goes back to 1926 and is one of 40 still operating, very much renovated and active original theaters in the United States, and I believe worldwide. Tampa Theater's won numerous awards for being one of the most beautiful theaters in the world. And it has such cool historic tidbits like this old call button phone. And then they do little details. My pet rats approved of this, but they had little rats all along the stairwell with popcorn, because of course we have to feed our pet rats as we go through the theater. And I just thought these were absolutely adorable. So we went to see the movie, and it was a beautiful black and white score. And you can see how just dynamic it was to watch this movie in this haunted theater. And then we came to intermission, where we met the organist, and he had some things to tell us.
Technically a pipe organ. It is a bunch of pipes designed to sound like orchestral instruments hidden up behind the walls, along with tons, and I literally mean tons, of orchestral percussions and sound effects, all the things that you can possibly imagine that make sound in a motion picture. This is a device whose purpose was to accompany motion picture. And I always tell people the greatest compliment you could give me is you won't even know that I was there. So it's a tremendously self-effacing art to be a theater organist. If you have questions about this marvelous contraption and want to have any of those questions answered, feel free to come and meet me at the end of the film. I'm always house left here. So I'm very happy you're all here. I hope you all come to our silent film presentations. I have a unique job here. If you don't know who I am, by the way, I'm Stephen Ball. I'm the artist in residence here at the Tampa Theater, and my job is, among other things, to educate and make people aware of this marvelous national treasure. Of over 7,000 of these built in the very brief span of time, which is silent film, first 40 years of motion picture, from about 1893 to 1927. There's only a few hundred left, only fewer than 40 in their original homes. This is one of them. So it's a very special thing that you have here. It's a national treasure inside of a national treasure. This building is one of the great theaters of the world. Ask anyone, and if they don't know, just bring them here and they'll agree with you. It is in fact haunted. Yes, the stories are true, especially if you're up in the balcony. Yes, I have stories. I won't bore you with them. I'll tell you about the film. The film is very important historically. It's called film, so a lot of people show up just because, oh, it's the first vampire film. But the guy who directed it, Renaud, 8 years later went on to win the first Academy Award and tied with another picture, Wings, for Best Picture that year. And now this is a really astonishing thing. Renaud is German, and the First World War just happened. So Germany and America were not seeing eye to eye, you should say. So it's a very astonishing thing that the Academy gave Best Picture to Renaud, and that's part of the reason we think that he co-tied for Best Picture with Wings. But the reason was because the man was technically brilliant. It was the use of shadow, depth of imagery, light and darkness that's all over this film, which really shouldn't survive. There was a big lawsuit and fiasco. Bram Stoker's estate sued the makers of this film and won the lawsuit. So every copy of this film had to be destroyed. The only copies that survived were things that were in third-run theaters in the middle of nowhere. And I'm not exaggerating when I say, like, a closet of a theater in Slovakia. It is that obscure. So there are very, very few precious copies of the film that survive. If you know anything about silent film, you know that they're printed on stock called nitrate stock that oxidizes, among other things. It produces its own oxygen when it's on fire. So it just explodes in the flame, which is why our booth is built like a fortress, really. And speaking of fortresses, by the way, this is also a great example of on-location filming. The filming is really in Slovakia, in the Carpathian Mountains. And so the castle you see really exists. It's called Orava Castle. You can go visit it. Along with the city, which is really the city of Wismar in northern Germany, along with Lübeck. Most of the things you see in this film that weren't destroyed by the Second World War, the bombing that took place, you can still see. So this is really a remarkable picture. It's a snapshot in time of some things that are no longer there because of the war. And it set the standard for all other vampire films to follow. You'll see all sorts of hallmarks and homages to this film all the way to the present day. I hope you enjoyed the second half of Nosferatu. Thank you so much for your support of the Tampa Theater. Thank you for coming here to all of our first-time visitors, and we hope you come back often and enjoy some of the wonderful and completely unique programming of this place. Have a lovely afternoon.
During the intermission, we were able to explore a little bit, though I had limited mobility because I've been suffering with a broken ankle this year. But we went up to the balcony area where in the early 2000s, when the Spirits of St. Petersburg investigated, we ran into a wall of lavender perfume, and this is the area that is referred to in the video before. We also went back to the second floor mezzanine where we did try to see if we could get any activity, and we only had some minor spikes, but there were so many people around, it really wasn't a fair investigation of sorts. We've also had equipment shut down there, and we've also seen cameras completely malfunction, even though they weren't supposed to. If you're interested in learning more about the Tampa Theater, please go to our archives at our website, www.spiritsofstpete.com, or just Google Spirits of St. Petersburg, or check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks so much.